Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Kamau. If you're joining me for the very first time, please subscribe to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about some things that surprised me the very first time I visited the United States. Now, my first visit to the United States was back in 2012. So that would have been 8 years ago, right? I have not been to many states. I've been to about 5 of the states. I visited New York, and that was the first place I actually visited, was New York. I've been to Connecticut, I've been to Illinois, Chicago, I've been to South Carolina, and I've been to Florida, right? So my observations were based on these 5 states. So I am in no way saying that the entire United States is like this, or even the entire of these 5 states are like that. It's just the sections that I happened to visit and the observations that I made. So the most striking thing for me when I visited was the coldness, because I just have an aversion to cold, so maybe that's why that struck me so much. And the reason it struck me too is not that I didn't know that I should expect it to be cold, because persons told me dress for the cold, but why it surprised me so much, it wasn't winter. I went there like the tail end of winter. I've never been to America in the dead of winter where there was heavy snow, right? I've always gone like in autumn, summer, spring. So when I went, it was actually spring. The winter had just ended. And when I landed in New York and I stepped out of the airport, I distinctly remember that frost just hitting me in my face. It was so frigid. And everybody else was going about their business, like this is the norm. But I guess it's because I have that aversion to cold. It just struck me. I felt like I was entering a refrigerator, the freezer. So that was the first thing that struck me. The second thing was, you always hear, coming from the Caribbean, growing up in the 80s, where I guess the economy was booming in America at that time, and I'd have friends in high school who would visit America in the summer or Christmas break, and they would come back with all of this, the trapper keepers and the fancy stuff, and so with that in my head, I guess I was expecting to see this magnificent place, this especially the malls, the shopping centers, and it was very underwhelming. Because I was saying, but we have malls and shopping centers that are just like these. Maybe not all of them, but we have some that are like that. And I would not, when I was coming back, and the person I was with was saying, you need to buy up stuff and to take back, and I'm saying, but I can get this back home. Almost everything I was seeing in the malls, in the shopping centers, pretty much I could get it back home, around about the same price. I guess there are things, like electronics, or if you're buying a car, if you're buying certain other things, yes, it might work out cheaper. And yes, there might be certain things that you just cannot source here, but I'm talking, generally speaking, like it was summer, like when I went in the summer and I was coming back, and they were saying buy up back to school stuff. I'm saying, why? I can get books, I can get bags just like these, I can get shoes just like these in Kingston. So yeah, so it was kind of underwhelming. Maybe there are, like I said, I just went to 5 states and just a few places in those 5 states, so I'm sure you guys can tell me about some fantastic, magnificent malls, shopping centers that I never had the privilege of going to and say, come on, look, you don't have anything even remotely close to this. But I'm just talking from my experience so far, having been through those 5 states and what I've seen compared to, we have malls, we have our stuff going on in the Caribbean. We're in the backyard, so it trickles down, so we're not too far behind there. Now, the third thing that really, it was kind of like a turn off, the bed bugs, right? Because you would think, okay, this is a first world country, and I never had bed bugs in my third world country. So when I went there, and this did not have any bearing on who I was staying with. It was just a general problem that I saw and read about in the papers and heard about. The several states have a great problem with infestation of bed bugs, and I was so scared. Well, I wouldn't say scared, but I was concerned, because people would tell me stories that they were on the bus or they were on the train and they would see bed bugs crawling on people, and they would see bed bugs in their luggage, so that was a turn off for me. But luckily, most places where I went and persons who I stayed with, I did not have the problem. Just two places, two friends who I stayed over with, and there was a problem in the building, a bed bug problem, and they were telling me that people put out their beds, the furniture very often because it's infested, and you would not be advised to see a bed on the sidewalk or a couch or whatever and take it up, because you're taking an infestation problem on yourself. So yeah, the bed bugs. The other thing, the level of poverty, those particular places where I went, the level of poverty that I saw among the Caribbean immigrants there, of course, you're going to have a mix. You're going to have Caribbean persons there who live very affluent lifestyles, or at least comfortable. But I'm talking about what I saw in some of the places that I went. Persons really living hand to mouth, and living in very overcrowded apartments, empty fridge, empty, and these are persons who back home, they would never take a bus, okay? If they're going somewhere and it's not by car, they're not going. And yet, they stand up in the snow waiting for the bus. So this is like a shift. And persons who would never take a job at like a fast food joint, or a nursing assistant back here in Jamaica, they go there and they fill these posts, they take these jobs readily. So it's a mental shift. What you will not do at home, you go to another man's country and you willingly do it. And I saw persons who I knew personally here who were so, stuck up and show off, and yet they're up there living hand to mouth. But when they come back here, it's a big pretense. It's a big pretense. So that was interesting to see. That was very interesting to see. And the docile nature too that they have, compared to, when they're back home, full of fire, and you can't, if you step on their toe, it's war. That fiery Caribbean spirit. They go to America and they are very docile, they are conformist, they are polite, they arrive at work on time to clock in. When they're in Jamaica, they say, you have something called Jamaica time. So if it must start at 6, they're not getting there till 8, right? But when they go to America, I'm talking about America, I'm sure it happens in other places, they conform. They turn up for work, they clock in on time, they do what they have to do very quietly, because they know what they're up against. And I remember walking on the road with this person, and we were in a heated argument. But usually back at home, in a heated argument, you cuss and you carry on. And I was doing that on the road, and the person said to me, listen, you're not back home. You need to calm down, because the cops just need to hear you raise your voice, and they're shipping you away, right? So I too had to learn the difference between what I can do at home, just casually, and what I had to learn the new rules for that new place I was in. I'll be just visiting for a couple weeks, because I can't stay outside of the tropics for too long, right? But just noticing the difference in the whole temperament of my Caribbean folks when they're up north, up yonder. Next, I noticed it's like they almost lose that hustler thing. Well, not all of them, because you have some Caribbean persons, they go to America and they are very much wired for putting in the hours, getting some money to send back home, right? But there were particular persons who I knew when they're home, some real hustlers. They just know how to turn over the cash, they just know what to do, juggle this, juggle that. And they get there and it's as if they just lose that vibe. They just don't know how to live. It's like the system is so alien to them, and they're so scared of breaking a rule here, because as you slip, you slide, right? And they lose that drive, that hustler that I knew, I observed in several fellow Jamaicans living abroad. They just lose that whole, and they're just not surviving well because of it, Back home, they knew how to survive. It's like they said, the evil that they knew this evil, they knew how to dilly-dally around this evil. Not so up north. It's a whole totally different evil up north. I also noticed in the fast food outlets, the food doesn't taste the same. It just does. And I'm talking about the same company, the same franchise, right? It just does not taste the same, because I would go and probably order fries or a fish burger or a veggie pizza, with the vegetarian toppings, mushroom, olive, pineapple, and so on. Same franchise, it just does not taste the same. And I noticed this also when I went to Curacao, ordered vegetarian pizza from the same franchise that I would order it in Jamaica, and it tastes totally different. So my understanding was that the ingredients are the same, they are shipped down, but apparently not. Maybe some local ingredients are mixed in to satisfy the flavor of the locals. It seems, because it tastes totally different to me. The fish burger that I buy in Jamaica was totally different from the one I bought in New York or in Florida or anywhere at the airports coming down, totally different. And the last thing I noticed, I guess there are other things, but off the top of my head now, an absence of burglar bars. You know, in Jamaica, almost every house will have grills along the windows, the doors, all the entrances. It's part of the whole design of the house. You know, it's granted. Not so in the houses that I've seen in all the states I traveled through. I don't remember seeing any burglar bars. So maybe it was because of the particular places that I went, but I don't remember seeing any. And they're quite common, very, very common here in Jamaica. So comment and tell me what are some differences if you are a person from the Caribbean and living or having traveled in America or anywhere up north. What are some of the differences that you notice both in the place and the people and in how our Caribbean nationals adapt themselves to that new environment? Comment and let me know, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for stopping by. If you haven't subscribed, please do so now before you forget, and I'll see you next time.